The Art of Self-Defense is a 2019 dark comedy film directed by Riley Stearns and starring Jesse Eisenberg, Alessandro Nivola, and Imogen Poots. The film follows Casey Davies, played by Jesse Eisenberg, an accountant who one night is mugged by a group of motorcyclists. Left traumatized by the beating he took and left in critical condition in the hospital, he decides to enlist in karate classes to learn self-defense. His karate teacher, or sensei, takes a special liking to him, and as he gets deeper into the karate classes and as he learns more about his instructor, problems arise and he has to figure out what kind of man he ultimately wants to be. I watched this movie with a very vague idea of what it was going to be about. I didn't really watch promotional material for it other than the trailer when it was first going to come out in 2019. I was not expecting this movie to surprise me in the way that it did, and I mean that in a good way. This movie makes you think, but before I get into that, let's talk about the performances. Alessandro Nivola is really funny in the movie and intimidating when he wants to be. His very dry humor fits the character perfectly, as you really can't tell if he's being an asshole for the sake of being funny or because he really is one. Imogen Poots is brilliant in this movie as well. She's a character with a lot of pent-up emotion, and just by looking at her eyes, you can see that this pain she's carrying is bursting out of her anytime she lets it come out. She's a really empathetic and really smart character. Now let's talk about Casey himself, Jesse Eisenberg. Jesse Eisenberg is the perfect actor to play Casey. I cannot imagine anybody else filling this role. Jesse has that perfect combination of awkwardness combined with his endearing quality that instantly makes you root for him and feel for him. He's jittery and fast-talking, as we all know about him, but his real strength is the fact that you can't exactly know or tell what he's thinking. He hides his emotions pretty well. He shows you only what you should see and nothing else. So there's a real sense of mystery to him. You want to keep watching him just to see how he's going to react and what he's going to do. That is Jesse's real strength as an actor, and that also is how his character of Casey is like. Casey is an awkward and introverted accountant. He's very shy, many people would consider him boring, and his work or personal life is not really exciting either. Not only is he timid, but even his job is monotonous with being an accountant. He lives with his small dog, and that's pretty much it. But it's his transformation throughout the movie that really makes you think, and I think really makes a statement, or at least asks the audience the question of what masculinity is, or what being a man really is. This movie makes you think. It really does. It makes you think about how we, as a culture, see what being a man is or how a man should be. This film dissects those stereotypically male characteristics and presents them to us and is bold enough to ask us the question of whether we should accept it or not. A lot of people would use the term toxic masculinity when talking about this topic, but I want to stay away from saying that term because the film doesn't just present toxic masculinity for us to see, but rather just masculinity. What does it mean to be a man in our culture? Casey in the film, as I said, is very timid and introverted. He lives, for all intents and purposes, a very stable and settled life. There's a few scenes where he's awkwardly standing in the break room at his job listening to his male coworkers talk about their lives and talk about women. They're all shamelessly and openly talking crudely about women, reading a magazine that was designed for those types of guys. You know which ones, those like overly macho, business alpha bro dudes. Casey is just there not having anything in common with them, but he tries to make a connection and talk to them, but they just mock him and tell him to get out of there. This happens throughout the film, and it really makes you wonder, well, since when is being quiet, a bit socially awkward, living a stable, settled life, not manly? Is a man supposed to be loud, braggadocious, and crude? And this leads to the biggest exploration that this movie makes, at least in my opinion, where it explores what happens to guys who are outcasts, don't fit in, but still want to be heard and feel like the men that they are. After Casey gets mugged and beat up, you can see that this idea lives in his mind 24/7. Is he not man enough? Is he even what a guy is supposed to be? He got mugged, he got beat up, and didn't defend himself. Instead, he begged and pleaded with them not to beat him or kill him. Thinking about this, he wants to learn how to defend himself. It is really interesting to me that the first thing he wants to do when thinking about defending himself is to go buy a gun as soon as he can. Sadly, this seems to be very true in the world that we live in. With all of the school shootings and massacres we experience, a lot of those cases are men who want to be heard, who want to feel like they have some impact in people's lives. I'm not justifying their actions, of course not, but I think it's an interesting thing to explore. To what extent or to what point is the world we live in our own actions responsible for the people we breed? That's a good question. It reminds me of Joker. Sadly, it does happen in real life. This idea leads him to want to learn karate. And in his karate classes, he sees that karate can be a brutal way of asserting one's dominance over another person. especially in the night classes that he takes, where the fights are very Fight Club-like fighting. And that learning how to defend yourself might also turn into learning how to hurt people. As the saying goes, hurt people hurt people. And Casey falls for this to an extent. As he says, he wants to be what he fears. If he always feared dominant men, aggressive men, assertive and selfish men, then he wants to be that. He wants to make other men fear him.
I'm afraid of other men. I want to be what intimidates me.
His instructor, his sensei, tells him that he's not man enough and that from now on he has to be dominant. He has to leave his small dog and get a man's dog like a German shepherd. Learn a strong foreign language like German instead of the French Casey was learning. Listen to purely metal music and not listen to authority figures like his boss at work. And that is a good topic to explore. Is that what being a man is like? Should a man make others fear him? I would argue that of course not. As Casey shows at the end of the movie, I think a man is supposed to know his weaknesses and play to his strengths, all while remaining humble, albeit still confident, but ultimately stepping aside where he isn't the main focus and when he isn't needed. Sadly, a lot of men, both in today's world and throughout history, fear letting go of their ego and their pursuit of pleasure, and they end up hurting everyone, causing the cycle of pain to ripple throughout other men and spreading to women and children. The character of Anna is a great example of this, played by Imogen Poots. She has been taking karate lessons since their sensei started teaching. She, in all fairness, has earned her black belt, but sensei does not give her the black belt simply because she is a woman and because of a personal problem they had years ago. According to him, a woman's place is simply to assist a man. So how could both a man and a woman be black belts? This causes her to, well, honestly, beat the shit out of another karate student to prove her point that she knows what she's doing and that she has earned that black belt. Unfortunately, like I was saying, this just proves my point of the cycle of aggression continuing over time. Sensei made her feel weak and inadequate, so she beat someone else to make herself feel big and to show that she is worth of the black belt. Then that student will go on to beat someone else to make himself feel stronger, and the cycle continues. All in all, this movie really impressed me. It's really funny, dark at times, well shot, well acted, and it's a well-told story that, even though it is coded in satire, speaks about a very important topic that I don't think is talked about enough. Yes, people throw the term toxic masculinity around when talking about this, but maybe it's more about masculinity as a whole and what it means to be a man in today's world, and what we should pay attention to, and how we could learn to accept each other to lessen the cycle of aggression and anger that carries on over time from man to man and person to person. I would give The Art of Self-Defense a solid 8 out of 10. I do recommend it. But what do you think about the movie? Have you seen it? Leave it in the comments. And yeah, I think this was a very interesting topic to explore in a film. I'm really curious as to what you think of it. Leave it in the comments. And all right, yeah, that's the end of the video. Goodbye.